My sister called me a failure with no future. In front of everyone, Dad laughed too. I smiled and said, "Cool, then don't ask me for help ever again." 2 weeks later. It started with a glass of red wine and the kind of silence that only comes from years of resentment neatly folded beneath the dinner table. My sister, Vanessa, was already on her second glass. She wore success like a second skin, tailored, glossy, and always 2 steps ahead of everyone else. Her laugh echoed off the dining room walls like it was rehearsed. She was the golden child, the one with the impressive job title, the firm handshake, the praise that flowed so easily from my father's lips. And me? I was the quiet one. The one who never quite fit into their mold of polished excellence. I didn't play the game the way they liked. No corporate ladder, no business lunches. Just me, a guy in his late 20s who kept his head down and disappeared into lines of code when the rest of the world chased spotlights. We were halfway through dinner when the dig came. It wasn't new, just louder this time. "You know," Vanessa said, swirling her wine, "it still amazes me how you've managed to go this long without doing anything with your life." The table went quiet. My fork hovered midair. I didn't look up. I didn't have to. I could feel the smirk stretching across her face. Dad chuckled. That low, condescending laugh he always used when he agreed with something but didn't want to say it outright. He didn't look at me. He didn't need to. The message was loud enough. Vanessa leaned back in her chair, her eyes locked on mine. "Honestly, Ethan," she said, "you're like a walking cautionary tale. A failure with no future." And there it was. The word that had always floated around behind closed doors finally came out in the open. Failure. I put down my fork, wiped my mouth with a napkin, looked around at the people I had spent my whole life trying to earn a nod from. Then I smiled. Not bitter. Not sarcastic. Just quiet. Calm. "Cool," I said. "Then don't ask me for help ever again." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't storm out. I just sat back and watched her face falter, just for a split second. But it was there. A crack in the mask. That night, I drove home to my tiny studio apartment with the flickering ceiling light and the laptop that doubled as my lifeline. I stayed up coding until 4 a.m. like I had every night for the past year and a half. Because what none of them knew, not Vanessa, not Dad, not anyone, was that I'd been quietly building something. A tech platform that was about to change everything. 2 weeks later it did. 2 weeks after that dinner, the world suddenly knew my name. I remember the morning it happened so clearly. I hadn't even gotten out of bed yet, still lying there, laptop open beside me, eyes blurry from another all-nighter, when my phone started vibrating like it was trying to escape the nightstand. At first, I thought it was a bug in the notification system I'd built into the app. But when I unlocked my screen, I saw the emails. Dozens of them. Then hundreds. Subject lines like, "Investor interest, conference invitation, media request." For a second, I thought I was dreaming. But then came the call from my lawyer. "We're closing," he said. 80 million. Full acquisition. You're going to want to breathe through this. I sat up slowly. My heart wasn't racing. I wasn't even excited. I just felt still. Like a moment I had imagined 1,000 times was finally real, and now that it was here, all I could think was, of course. The company, my company, had been operating under a shell name. I'd been keeping everything under wraps, working through the nights, burning through ramen dinners and self-doubt, knowing I had something big but terrified of being wrong. It was a platform that automated cross-system data integration, something so boring on the surface most people didn't realize how revolutionary it could be. But the right people did. A major firm made an offer that blew every other bid out of the water. They wanted the product. They wanted the IP. And unexpectedly, they wanted me too. Suddenly, I wasn't the quiet one anymore. I was the keynote speaker at a tech summit in San Diego. The face in articles with titles like, "From Failure to Fortune, the Startup That Silenced the Doubters." Podcasts, interviews, panel invites. I said yes to some, ignored others. The money hit my account 3 days after the paperwork finalized. I didn't touch it at first. Just stared at the numbers. 8 zeros. It didn't even look real. Then came the texts. Hey Ethan. Vanessa's message started. Crazy seeing you in TechCrunch. We should catch up soon, smiley face. And then one from Dad. Proud of you. Really. Could use some advice on pension stuff when you have time. Funny. They always said I had no future. But now they wanted a piece of it. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. I booked a flight instead, one way, no return. I wish I could say I felt something when the texts started piling in, guilt, maybe. A twinge of vindication. But the truth? I felt nothing. Not joy, not anger. Just quiet. It started slow. A few. Congratulations. Texts from cousins I hadn't heard from since high school. A LinkedIn connection request from my old manager who once told me I wasn't leadership material. Then came Vanessa's second message. Hey again! I was wondering if you had a minute to talk about something. It's work-related. Ah. There it was. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. Because the next day, it was Dad. Ethan. Things aren't going well. We need to talk. Please. And then, a voicemail. I let it go to transcription. His voice, usually so steady and dismissive, sounded tired. Tight. Your sister's company is falling apart. She made some bad calls, and the board's talking about a restructure. It's complicated. Just, can we talk? Maybe you can help her out. My stomach didn't drop. My hands didn't shake. I just sat there, barefoot on the balcony of the rented villa I was staying at in Lisbon, sipping black coffee and watching the sunrise paint the ocean gold. And then, because the universe has a twisted sense of timing, another message popped up. This time from Dad again. My pension isn't covering as much as I thought. The market's not kind right now. If you could help out, just a little. That's when I finally smiled. Because I remembered him, sitting across from me at that dinner table, laughing when Vanessa called me a failure. Laughing like he had rehearsed it. Like it was easy. They used to say I didn't have a plan. That I wasn't realistic. That I needed to grow up. And now they were asking for help because they had planned for everything, except this. Except me. And still, I said nothing. I didn't block them. I didn't write back. I didn't even read the full messages. I just let them pile up, one after the other, testaments to everything they thought I'd never be. I didn't make a scene. Didn't post about the acquisition, didn't craft a clever status update. Just quietly disappeared from the life they thought they controlled. I moved 3 weeks after the deal closed. Not just apartments, countries. I picked a place no one would expect, the southern coast of Portugal. The kind of place where the air smells like salt and citrus, and no one cares who you are as long as you're kind and pay your tab. I found a sleek, modern home perched high above the cliffs. Glass walls. An infinity pool that looked like it poured directly into the ocean. The first night there, I didn't unpack. I just stood barefoot on the stone terrace and watched the sky melt into the sea. I couldn't hear anything but wind and water and the occasional gull crying out as it rode the breeze. It was the first time I'd ever felt completely untethered. No expectations. No labels. No one reminding me of what I was supposed to be. Back home, the text kept coming. Vanessa again, this time a little less cheerful. Ethan, I don't know if you're getting these. I really need your help. I could lose everything. Then one from Mom, which caught me off guard. She had rarely said much during the dinner that night, just looked down at her plate like she always did when things got uncomfortable. Her message was short. I know we weren't fair to you. I'm sorry. I hope you're okay. I didn't answer that one either. Forgiveness, maybe? But silence felt more honest. More mine. Instead, I focused on building something new. I reinvested part of the buyout into a mentorship program for young developers who had talent but no support. Kids who reminded me of, well, me. The ones who didn't fit the mold. The quiet ones, the underestimated ones. And I built a circle around me, carefully. People who believed in ideas, not status. Who didn't laugh when someone was down or measure worth by a job title or degree. Artists, thinkers, builders, weirdos. People who got it. Every morning, I woke up to the ocean. No alarms. No noise. No one telling me I was behind. Just me. Silence used to feel like rejection. Like the pause after a joke no one laughed at. Like being 15 years old and watching your dad walk out of your science fair booth without a word. Like hearing your sister brag about her latest promotion while no one asked how your day was. But now, silence was something else entirely. It was peace. It was the absence of begging, expectations, guilt trips wrapped in family duty. It was mornings where I brewed coffee without checking my phone. Afternoons where I coded for the joy of solving a problem, not to prove I was worth keeping around. Evenings where the only sound was the sea, brushing against the cliffs like it had all the time in the world. And it wasn't just silence from them. I had stopped talking too. No statements, no revenge monologues, no last word. Just nothing. I didn't answer the texts. Didn't open the voicemails. I stopped scrolling through their social media, stopped caring who said what or how their lives were unraveling. I no longer needed to win. I had already left the game. Because that's what no one tells you, when people strip you of your worth, and you find it anyway, you don't go back to prove them wrong. You move on and build a life so far beyond their reach, their opinions no longer echo in your mind. My silence was not passive. It was surgical. It cut clean, deep, and final. Vanessa sent a longer message eventually. A real one. Not performative, not rehearsed. Just raw. I'm sorry. I don't know if you'll read this. You didn't deserve what I said. I was drunk and stupid and jealous. I guess I still am. You were never a failure. You were just quiet. And we were too loud to notice. I stared at it for a long time. Not because I was tempted to reply. But because, for the first time, she sounded like someone I might have wanted to know, if she hadn't been my sister. I didn't reply. I didn't hate her. I just didn't need her anymore. And that kind of freedom? That's the rarest kind. I wasn't expecting the knock. That's what made it unsettling. It was mid-morning, early spring. The air outside still carried a whisper of winter in its bones, but the sun had already begun to stretch long and warm across the cliffs. I was barefoot in my kitchen, flipping through a print edition of The Atlantic, something I picked up as a small act of rebellion against glowing screens. Then the knock came. Sharp. Hesitant. 2 beats, a pause, then one more. I didn't get visitors. The villa had a private road, a gated entrance, and a motion sensor alert that buzzed when someone approached the front path. None of those had triggered. And yet, someone was on the other side of the door. I opened it slowly, more curious than cautious. And there she was. Vanessa. She stood there in flats that probably cost more than my first laptop, but they were scuffed. Her hair was pinned back but frizzed at the edges, and the usual confidence in her eyes had been replaced by something I didn't recognize. Uncertainty. Hey, she said, arms folded like she didn't know what else to do with them. I was in Spain for work. I rented a car. Thought I don't know. Just drive. I didn't say anything. I had your address. From before, she added quickly, as if reading my silence as accusation. I know I should have asked. She trailed off. I didn't move. Didn't step back to let her in. Didn't close the door either. Just stood there, letting her stew in the air between us. I wanted to see you, she finally said. I wanted to say it. In person. I raised an eyebrow. Say what? She swallowed. That I was wrong. The words were small. Not dramatic. No grand apology, no flood of tears. Just a sentence, flickering at the edge of her pride. I nodded once. Then stepped outside, closing the door behind me. We sat on the stone bench overlooking the ocean. She stared at the waves like she thought they might speak for her. I let the silence stretch. Finally, she turned toward me. You don't owe us anything. I know that now. I didn't then. Why are you really here, Vanessa? I asked, not unkindly. Just direct. She blinked. I thought I came for closure. But now that I'm sitting here, I think maybe I came to see what it looked like. A life without all the noise. A life you built without us. I gave a half smile. It's quiet. Too quiet? She asked. No, I said. It's just enough. She looked down at her hands. I miss you, Ethan. I nodded. I miss the version of you I thought would come. But that version never showed up. She looked like she might cry. But she didn't. I stood up. I hope you find peace, Vanessa. I really do. She looked up at me, searching for something. Maybe forgiveness, maybe a door cracked open. But I didn't offer either. I turned, walked back to my front door, and left her on the bench with the ocean and the wind. She didn't follow. And when I glanced back through the window half an hour later, her rental car was gone. The thing about freedom, true, clean, untethered freedom, is that it doesn't beg for attention. It doesn't show up all at once like a parade. It creeps in, quietly, almost shy. And then one morning you realize you've been living it for weeks, maybe months, without even noticing. That realization came to me the morning after Vanessa left. I stepped out onto the terrace, same as always, coffee in hand, the early light brushing against the tiles like it belonged there. But this time, I noticed something different. The stillness wasn't just around me. It was inside me too. There were no voices echoing in my head, no critical remarks, no memory of scoffs, no looping playback of the dinner that broke the dam. Just silence. And choice. Because that's what it had all come down to, hadn't it? Choice. I had chosen to stay quiet. Chosen to build something when they thought I was doing nothing. Chosen not to fight back with words but with patience. And now, I had to make one more choice. Do I let them back in? The question lingered. Because, truthfully, I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't out for revenge. I had no interest in watching them fail or wishing them harm. I just didn't care. And that scared me more than anger ever did. When you stop caring, you gain power. But you also lose something too. The part of you that wanted their love, their recognition, the old ache that believed, deep down, they might change. That part of me had died. And I hadn't even mourned it. So I sat down on the terrace wall, legs dangling over the edge, and stared at the vast horizon. I pulled out my phone. Dozens of unread messages. Old voicemails. Missed calls. Vanessa's face, frozen in a still from yesterday. I hovered over her name. Not to respond. To delete it. And I did. One by one, I erased the trail of breadcrumbs back to the people who had laughed when I needed their belief the most. No announcements. No cathartic final text. Just deletion. Quiet. Complete. Because I wasn't just cutting them off. I was choosing myself. I thought rebuilding would feel like climbing. Like a desperate scramble upward towards some new summit, some better version of myself that waited at the top, arms open. But it didn't. It felt like gardening. Slow. Quiet. Intentional. I didn't fill the silence with more noise. I didn't rush to network or reinvent. I let the days stretch. I read books I'd never had time for. Walked barefoot through morning dew. Learned how to cook things that didn't come in foil packets. For the first time in years, I wasn't sprinting, I was being. And I wasn't alone. Over time, the house began to fill, not with family, but with people. A group that formed naturally, almost effortlessly. A painter from the Netherlands who'd escaped corporate burnout, and now sold abstracts from a cliffside shack. A former startup founder from Chile who taught yoga on the beach after walking away from his own millions. A barista-turned-musician who buskied with a smile you couldn't forget. They weren't there for status or legacy. They didn't ask what I did for a living. They asked what I cared about. And slowly, I started to answer. I began mentoring again. Not for publicity, but privately, helping 2 young coders in Lisbon build something meaningful, something quiet and useful and theirs. We met once a week at a rooftop cafe. We didn't talk about the $80 million deal. We talked about architecture, about problem solving, about building clean and leaving the rest behind. And just like that, a new kind of family formed. Not the kind that asks you to shrink so they can shine. Not the kind that cuts you open and calls it tradition. But the kind that listens, that shows up, that asks nothing but honesty. That was the life I had wanted all along. Not fame. Not vindication. Belonging. And I didn't find it by proving anyone wrong. I found it by walking away before I ever tried. I used to imagine it all the time, the moment I'd walk back into their lives. That grand return. Me, stepping into some family gathering, dressed sharp, calm, successful. Their eyes wide. Their mouths shut for once. My father's handshake firm and uncharacteristically proud. Vanessa's voice smaller than usual. My mother teary, maybe. But that scene? It never came. Because I stopped needing it. You learn, after a while, that closure isn't something you wait for. It's something you decide. You don't walk back into the fire to prove you're fireproof. You build a house somewhere else, one with thicker walls, fewer expectations, and windows that face the ocean instead of the past. I still got updates sometimes. Not from them, never from them, but through the grapevine. A mutual acquaintance mentioned Vanessa was being investigated internally. Something about misreporting figures. My father had moved in with a friend temporarily after his retirement fund cratered post-market crash. No one said it, but I could tell the empire they'd built around control and appearance was crumbling. And me? I didn't feel anything. No spite. No glee. Not even relief. Just distance. Like reading about strangers in a newspaper article. That's when I knew I wasn't going back. Not for closure. Not for a moment of triumph. Not even to settle the score. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is let people wonder what it would have felt like to still have you in their lives. And never tell them. Never explain. Never justify. Never return. It was a Tuesday evening, unremarkable by most standards. The kind of day you forget, unless you were there to feel it. A breeze rolled in from the Atlantic, warm and slow, brushing the edges of the terrace as the sky sank into gold. I stood barefoot on the stone, a glass of wine in hand, watching the sun melt into the horizon like it had nowhere better to be. And for once, neither did I. No texts. No apologies. No ghosts trying to claw their way back through old doors. Just quiet. The good kind. Behind me, soft music drifted from inside the house. Laughter, too, my new family, my chosen circle. People who saw me not as potential, not as disappointment, but simply as enough.